Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We're going to go to old business, and we had, I'm sorry, forgot again. Tonight's meeting is being both video and audio taped. If anyone else is video and or audio taping, please let us know. You're doing both.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, old business. We have a resident concern regarding town vehicles and inspection stickers, and I'll turn that over to you, Mr. Nargan.
Mr. Chair, we received a couple emails, one from Mr. Thomas Bordeaux, our highway surveyor, and one from Chief Spirikowski. And I just want to read the email from Mr. Bordeaux first. Gentlemen, concerning the conversation on March 10, 2015 Selectmen's meeting regarding the highway truck with a rejection sticker. Truck failed its inspection for broken leaf springs. During the Blizzard Juno, during a state of emergency, the truck was in service for the storm. The vehicle was repaired on January 28, 2015, and a valid inspection sticker was received on January 31st, 2015. I also have an email from Chief Spirikowski regarding that also. Dear members of the board, back when the allocation to the highway department vehicles being operated with rejection stickers was made, I was verbally asked by the members of the board to check into it. I spoke with Mr. Thomas Bordeaux that same day and informed him that the board was questioning it. Tom told me that the repairs had been made and that he would provide the board with information. There were no reports made to the police department regarding inspection stickers during the time that is claimed that the trucks were being operated. There are also no reports by any police officers observing the trucks being operated with rejection stickers. And then we have another email from Chief Spirikowski regarding the police vehicles. Dear board members, during the declared state of emergency due to the blizzard, the police department anticipated the need of 2 4-wheel drive vehicles. In addition to the Humvee, which has no heat, we were prepared to use the Expedition to respond to emergency calls. We did not have any other vehicles capable of operating in the extreme conditions. The Expedition did not log, any calls for service. The liability for failing to respond to emergency was the basis for the decision. Car 2 was out of service for approximately a week at the beginning of March due to electrical problems. The car was repaired, and we were advised by the service technician to drive the car for 100 miles before submitting it for an inspection. The car was picked up for service on March 7th and submitted for inspection on March 11th. It currently has a valid inspection sticker on it. Those are the 3 correspondents.
Okay. We have Ms. Janet Pierce from Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission with us tonight to discuss the Regional Animal Control Service / Shelter, and I will turn it over to you.
Would you like me to?
Absolutely.
Good evening, and thank you for having me with this evening. As you may be aware, I believe your board had talked to a member of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission about a study that was going to be conducted with the towns of Ware, Palmer, Munson, Hardwick, and Warren concerning sheltering and animal control services. I presented you with a scope of services that Josh Garcia, my counterpart at Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and I will be working on with the 5 communities. Just a brief overview. We're going to be conducting an analysis that will determine whether the municipality's animal control officer services could be enhanced by a cooperative effort and/or by establishing a regional dog shelter and its feasibility. The various tasks that will be conducted is the Animal Control Border Control Task Force. And in fact, our first meeting of that task force will be held next Tuesday at 2 o'clock in the Palmer Town Hall. So any stakeholders in this process that you wish to include, please have them either get in touch with me or just let me know who may be in attendance and we can plan accordingly. The second task will be inventory and assessment. The third, the site analysis that can host an animal control shelter. Fourth, the financial feasibility analysis. Fifth, capital funding requirements and funding sources. Sixth, business model, operating structure. Just to let you know, there is a similar shared animal control service out in Franklin County. They've been doing it for quite a few years. And a few years ago, the towns of Barry, Hubbardston, Princeton, and Rutland were awarded a Community Innovative Challenge grant to create a shared animal resource and also a shelter. So we'll be using those in conjunction with other models to go by as well. And then 7, we'll come up with a recommended implementation and framework for your review. This study is being funded 100% by the District Local Technical Assistance Funds, the grants that we use to provide shared services to conduct studies. As you may recall, I believe it was last year, we did the Rule 11 prioritization project, and that was paid for with the District Local Technical Assistance Funds as well.
Very good. We will request that our animal control officer attend that meeting
Okay?
on Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and you can contact her tomorrow and let her know when it is and so forth, and say the board would appreciate greatly if she would attend that.
And if not, I can provide, if for some reason your animal control officer is not able to attend, I can provide a summary of the meeting. I can send it to you and you can share it with the board if you'd like. Or-
We will have someone there. If not the animal control officer, we will come up with someone else to make sure they're there.
Wonderful.
Any questions?
No.
Questions?
Yeah, all set. Maybe one, can you provide us with that overall view anyway? Even if we do have somebody show up?
Yes, yes, I'll keep you informed. I will send it along to you.
No question. We hate to have you come out for just that short little bit.
Oh, this was easy. It was only a 12-minute ride from my house, so.
Huh?
And I didn't have power at home, so
Well,
it's
that-
a pleasure to have lights.
You have the 60-mile-an-hour winds that people were talking about
Yeah.
in Boston?
Well, Tom said he picked up some limbs on the way. I picked some up on Wickabag Quag Valley Road to move them out of the way.
Well, the town's very interested in this. We definitely want to see what we can do about it. We thank people for letting us at least participate in the whole thing. And we will make sure somebody's there.
Thank you.
All right? And I thank you very much for coming
You're
in.
welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll leave you a few business cards if you have any questions.
please.
Very good.
Anything else we can do, please get in touch with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you just pull around, please? Part of the minutes. All right, I will go to comments and concerns. Does anybody wish to address the board? Yes. Oh, Sean, go ahead, you were first.
It goes back to the safety inspection sticker with the highway department. The vehicle failed the inspection on the 15th. That vehicle was out on the road before it got fixed, or before Tom alleged it got fixed. And it's still a violation, because nobody reported it. The board was aware that that vehicle was out on the road. So I just don't think we can just brush over this. If that's the pattern of behavior of our highway surveyor, then I think that that needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Anything you want to say, Tom?
I have no comment.
We'll look into it some more.
Okay?
We have to see what we can do. Tom's elected, you have to remember that. That's part of the
I
whole thing.
understand that, but under his watch,
Mm-hmm.
there's a foreman that permitted that vehicle to be operated on the road in direct violation of Mass General law. So it's still within the board's purview to address these issues. I also understand that in January, the board sent out a letter to former employees of the highway department seeking evidence of misconduct. Is that true?
That's correct.
And have you received a response?
We received 1 out of the 2, and we just received it.
And the evidence would support violations of the town personnel bylaws?
The letter that came in, first time I saw it was today. I don't know when the other 2 members saw it. We will be discussing that. We haven't discussed it as a board yet. We will be discussing it.
Okay,
We just got it this afternoon.
okay, and you got that this afternoon?
Yeah.
I got my copy about 2 weeks ago.
You got
So,
faster mail than we do.
And is there also a renewed allegation of a potential larceny?
I didn't see that one.
No, I didn't.
Maybe I didn't read it right, but I took a very quick look before I came in here tonight, Sean, okay? I didn't see that in the least. I will go back and read, that's the reason I'm saying I haven't had a chance to read it that well, because I received it probably at 5 minutes of 7 when I came in. So,
I'm sorry. And I haven't I haven't read it. I know you just opened it when we got it. I just received it this afternoon.
but we will be reviewing it.
Okay, I have a copy here.
Okay, I have my copy. Everybody's got every member of the board's got a copy, but we really did just receive it at about 5 minutes of 7. We will be reviewing it. Any other comments?
I have a question on those 3 letters you read. Did this town ever have 2 4-wheel drive vehicles at the same time prior to this winter?
Yes,
When,
you have the big Ford and you have the Humvee.
how long ago?
How long ago? I don't know.
It's presented like he had to have 2 to perform his job. You don't need 2.
Okay.
And I'd like a copy of each of the letters.
No problem. Lorena will have them for you, we'll make your copies. Going back and looking, I'm going to say, off the top of my head, I think we always had the one SUV, and the second 4-wheel drive vehicle we had would be the Humvee, and I'm guessing, and it's a guess, Stanley, probably 1.5 years, but it's a guess.
Well, I thought it's been longer than that.
It could be, I'm guessing.
My contention is that's an excuse. That's all.
The safety of the police officers, as well as the safety of the people in town, and being able to get to them in a quick manner is what is most important. And if you have 2 available at your disposal, that is what you should use.
But from what I understand, one was being used and one was set in front of the station as an emergency, which they didn't have to use, they were only using the one. The second one was supposed to be a backup in case they needed it.
If you want a exact date, Stanley, as to when we got the 2 vehicles, we'll find out. That's all I can tell you, okay? All right, we'll go to, go ahead, Jim.
In response to Mr. Lavash's statement that the SUV with the rejection sticker may have been stationed in reserve at the front of the police station on the 27th of January, just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was standing on Maple Street talking with a friend of mine who was snow blowing his driveway when I looked to see the SUV in question being operated by a uniformed police officer heading south on Maple Street, up Maple Street towards the direction of Brimfield Road. So that is contrary to the information that the board has that it wasn't out on patrol, because it was.
Okay, we'll check into it.
I have a second question. Having heard the email explanations from both department heads, what is the position that the board collectively takes on the allowance of these vehicles to be operated with rejection stickers for safety reasons? And is there a position that the town would be willing to take in the event, an official position, in the event there was an accident involving personal injury or property damage by the operation of either of those vehicles?
I think that we would be willing to answer that, Jimmy. Give me a week or so. I am going to contact you, or we'll contact the insurance company and see what the exposure is before I say anything. I have to know the exposure first.
Have you heard from our insurance company prior to today's date regarding town vehicles being operated contrary to rejection stickers?
I have not.
Okay,
We will find out.
thank you.
I just have a question for Derek. Could you, just a clarification, did the chief actually conduct an investigation into that? Because in his email, into the allegations of the
Contacted.
highway matter? Because normally if there's an investigation, there should be a police report, so I was just curious why
I don't
that,
think it's worded as an investigation, I mean,
Oh,
we'll
okay.
go back at it, but I think he contacted the highway surveyor.
okay.
But I don't think it was worded as an investigation.
Oh, okay, so in other words, so he just sent an email instead of a formal investigation?
He contacted the highway surveyor,
Okay.
but he emailed this information to us. This was what he sent to us
Uh-oh.
in response to what the residents requested.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Okay, I'll allow one more question, Sean.
And has the police department rendered, as you requested, a written report on that investigation?
I don't think it's been a written report, I think we've received this email.
As far as I know, the only thing we received so far is the emails.
And are you satisfied with that response from your police department?
I think there's gonna be a discussion. I have to know all the facts first. I want to know the exposure to the town through for insurance if something were to happen. And I think there'll be more discussion once we know that.
Why does the exposure, as far as liability, have to do with a violation of Mass General Law?
I think the question becomes, a question in my mind strictly would be, if indeed there was, if the chief is saying he used it because he had to, okay? Now, I know there was some other information Mr. Kordek just gave us. The chief is saying he had to use them because he needed them and so forth. Question becomes is if we broach that question with the insurance company and find out what the exposure was if something would have happened, I think that opens up a different type of thing. And I want to know that before we make any other decisions.
Okay, I would agree with that. My focus is on the highway department.
I understand, but I think it's mostly the same. I made a call at one time, okay? And I looked it up on the internet one time. I didn't talk to somebody.
And you trust that?
Okay, I didn't say that, okay? I said I looked it up on the internet. The information I had from the internet was, if something fails a safety inspection, it's supposed to be taken off the road, unless the matter is fixed and the owner of the vehicle carries a paper from the person that fixed it saying it's fixed, then it's legal for him to drive.
Okay. The last time you brought that up, you said you contacted the registry of motor vehicles and was.
That's where it was
And
online.
now you're saying you did that on research on the internet.
Online through
Which
the
one?
RMV, that's correct. I went into the RMV to look and see what their rules and regulations are pertaining to that, and that's where I got that information from, online. So it was contact through the RMV online. Excuse me.
So you didn't contact the RMV in person?
I contacted them only online. I did not call, I contacted online.
And you're saying that if it was a state of emergency, it would have been okay?
I'm saying that's what we're trying to find out.
Okay. And there are only a couple of specific dates when there was quote-unquote a state of emergency, and it wasn't during the time that this highway truck was out there.
We will, I'm gonna look into the insurance first. That's one of the first things I wanna know. Then we'll go from there.
Okay?
Anyone else? Yes, go ahead.
We were working on budgets currently with FinCom, and we have some questions that we need to ask of the selectmen. I'd like to know if you'd like to use this forum for that, or can we make an appointment with you because we really need to go over some budget issues?
We have budgets on tonight, can we discuss it then?
We put 15 minutes aside to discuss budget. We'll happily, when we get to that, we will let you talk.
Thank you.
All right, correspondence.
Memorandum from the Board of Sewer Commissioners requesting building keys for the commissioners.
Do they have some already, or?
No.
They have
Well, Lisa has, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Lisa has one, but the commissioners do not.
Lisa's works here, the commissioners come in to see Lisa, so it would be strictly when Lisa's here most of the time.
That is my impression, yes.
How many keys?
I don't think about any keys. There's
How
no
many-
other
I'm sorry, how
department
many
allowed
keys?
3 sets of keys.
There's three commissioners.
There was more keys than building.
The problem is we're trying not to give keys out.
Right.
I don't have a problem giving one key to the commissioners, and that key could be kept at the sewer treatment plant. If somebody wants to come up here, they could use it. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
If you have to, I don't see them coming up there without Lisa.
So,
Good?
Yep, go ahead.
Memorandum from the planning board regarding proposed zoning amendments at the annual town meeting in May. Want me to read this?
Yep, go ahead.
Please advise that the planning board is anticipating sponsoring 3 proposed zoning amendments at the annual town meeting in May. They are as follows. Amendment to the current dimensional requirements in the village district, proposed medical marijuana treatment center bylaw, and amendment to the mill overlay district, MCOD, to include the Hardwick Knittery Fabrics property which was originally omitted at the request of the property owner. As standard protocol, when the proposals are finalized, the office will be requesting the use of town council for the review as required. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact our office. There's 3 proposed articles coming forward.
Okay.
We have the fire chief's report for 2015 that came in from Adam. No, I'm not gonna read the whole thing. An email from William Scanlon regarding the 2014 EDIP annual report from Portland Valve LLC and Warren Pumps LLC. Correspondence from Senator Ann Goby regarding the governor's release of his budget proposal for Wednesday, March 4th, and information regarding the budget schedule and to solicit any budget requests you might have. Correspondence from Maya regarding workman's compensation statement credit available. I did not see that. Did you see that yet?
No.
Correspondence from Stephen, J. Herzog, project manager, Emmett Foster Wheeler, of notice of a public hearing and availability of the vegetation management plan, VMP, prepared for CSX transportation. 2 pieces of correspondence from National Grid regarding National Grid's transmission vegetation management notification of upcoming vegetation management activities to be conducted between April 1st, 2015 and March 31st, 2016, and National Grid's transmission vegetation maintenance 30-day notification. Warren Community Development Advisory Committee, CDAC, notification of public meeting to consider potential actions for 25 identified distressed properties in Warren on Wednesday, March 18th, 2015. I believe that's at the senior center, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. I will be attending a portion of that meeting.
Sorry, what time is that at?
I'm sorry?
What time is
6.
Six?
I believe it's 6. 6 to 7:30, I think.
Okay, is it posted?
It's on the website.
It's on the website, thank you.
Yep. And that's it. That's the last
Okay.
one.
We have Scott Maderas of Woodward and Kern on updates on Spring Creek Culvert Mass Work Grant Award. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. My name is Scott Maderas. I'm here from Woodward and Kern. Purpose of our meeting tonight was to sort of just give you an update on the project, which in an overview, some time ago you were lucky enough to have a successful grant for replacement of the culvert that has been problematic over the last number of years for you. Tom Boudreau, your highway surveyor, and Bill Scanlon, your town planner, were successful in that application, and so I think they did a great job to secure $350,000 that order of magnitude for the project. So we had hoped to have a significant amount of advancement. I brought some photos tonight. If you haven't been up to Spring Street, it's a little difficult to get some survey completed. So in an effort to not waste your money that you've secured, we've been waiting for Old Man Winter to leave, and now that it's St. Patrick's Day, it looks like things just may be turning a corner. So our expectation is that we'll compress the design schedule as soon as we can get survey crews and wetland delineation folks out on the site. We're going to get some geotechnical work completed, and the goal is to increase the capacity of that culvert and avoid some of the problems that you've had in the past. So the contract that we have with the town indicated a kickoff meeting, sort of an open forum kickoff meeting, and we will be going to conservation for a notice of intent approval for the work that will occur there when it ultimately gets bid. So we thought it was appropriate to come in and sit with you folks and briefly explain the project and make sure that any questions you might have are answered, or any from the general public as sort of a starting point.
Questions?
No.
Questions from you?
No, I don't think so. How long, I keep saying no and then I ask questions. How long before you think you're gonna get to?
Well,
The next step.
yeah, we expect that we'll we'll be hopefully bidding it for next construction season. We won't be able to bid it this summer. We don't want to do the work in the middle of the winter, so it'll go into the next construction season.
I only have one question, and this is the question I asked before, and it was a 2-to-1 vote on this, for this grant,
I was aware of that.
okay? My question basically pertains to the reason I voted no the first time. We are gonna create, I agree we probably are going to fix where that culvert particularly is now, and I agree we're probably gonna alleviate a lot of the problem on that street, okay? My question being, what are we going to do with the next place down the line?
Down under the state.
Under the state highway, that we have washed away some people's, we didn't, but the water had washed away some of other people's land.
Right.
And I guess my question, are we taking that problem from one place and putting it in another place?
Well,
Or
right now it's a
exasperating the
problem.
problem in the other place?
Right now, it's a problem for both places.
I understand.
Right, so, we believe that, the laws of hydraulics and the issues that occur there, a lot of it has to do with the beaver dam, so there's no perfect fix for it.
I understand.
It really is sort of dependent on the management of the beaver dams, which occur, actually, I've taken from the grant application, and I know the general public can't see it, but the beaver dam location that occurs quite a bit upstream on School Street Brook, that's barely in Warren, but under the control of other entities. So the management of that will play a role going forward. However, when you do have periodic dam failures that aren't catastrophic like you've had in recent years, those happen every year. The dams are made by the beavers, and if they're there, those release in different levels. So they'll either have a massive catastrophic failure of a large beaver dam, which results in some of the things you saw recently, or you have periodic breakdowns of those beaver dams as storms come through, and you get torrents of water, but nothing like what you saw. So increasing the capacity will allow for Spring Street to be preserved and part of that is the potential future development of the solar array up at the end of the road, and making sure that Spring Street continues to maintain its integrity through some of these events. The additional capacity will allow those storms to not build up behind Spring Street and then pour over Spring Street, which has a compounded sort of effect down at the main highway down below. So the constant flow of that water over time will allow the culvert downstream to not be inundated with that big wave. And I don't want to get into too many of the details, but as you can picture, as that water builds up and the capacity of the culvert at Spring Street is overwhelmed, ultimately you're only carrying a certain flow. When that releases and goes over the road, like happened a number of times, and that torrent gets down there all that much more quickly, that's when you have a major issue at the roadway down below. So we're not pretending that there'll never be a problem again between Spring Street and down at the highway. However, what we're proposing to do will preserve the integrity of Spring Street and also allow for flow that would otherwise be backing up behind Spring Street to actually get down to the roadway sooner, which will hopefully alleviate some of the challenges there. We did ask the state if they wanted to participate in this project by looking at that culvert downstream, and they did not.
Did they laugh?
I'm not sure if they laughed because I didn't speak to them directly, but I suspect they might have.
And I'll tell you why I asked that. We talked about the beaver dam and so forth. Beaver dam's on state property. That's all state property up there.
Right.
Very big chunk that goes from West Brookfield into Palmer. The only way we manage the beaver dam is that we have a highway superintendent go up there and inspect it every now and then to make sure it's not getting, and the state's answer to that was, well, really, you go up and look at it and so forth. So we knew the state, and that was my concern all along, the state was never gonna go and dig up that road and put a bigger culvert in, or at least clear the culvert out. It was not gonna happen.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure you answered my question, but you might have actually confirmed what I thought. But that's the only question I have at this time.
If the beaver dam breaks up top, in a million gallons of water, they get to the point where it's up over the road, flooding both sides of the street. Is the culvert gonna change that at all? The same
That
amount.
will increase the flow. Ultimately, if you have a catastrophic
If the water
failure,
is going over the dam, you're gonna get as much water beyond that, over the culvert, you're gonna get as much water beyond that culvert as you would anyway.
we're gonna improve it in the vast majority of cases, but there's no control over how much, I mean, when you have that kind of release, there's nothing you can do short of a bridge that will solve that entirely.
Okay, any questions from anybody? Ariel, want to ask one more time? Bob?
Yeah, I'll say.
All right. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you very
coming in.
much. Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is agreement between Town of Warren and the Associating Builders Records for 20 Chapel Street demolition. Let's see.
This is the agreement and the contract, hold on, what it says, the demolition of 20 Jones.
That was a motion?
Good, that's a motion.
Motion was to have the board sign that agreement. Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. So I will sign it and then pass it on. Do it this way. Thank you. And thank you. Next item is a contract amendment for the Warren Hardwick and Community Opportunities Grant, and it's to extend the time of performance no later than June 30th, 2015, and I would await a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item is appointments to the Historical Commission.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I want to make a motion that we appoint Edgar H. Buck Jr., John D. Hathaway, Clifford G. Fountain, Sylvia G. Buck, and Ruth J. Lysath to the Warren Historical Commission.
The first two of those being till 2017.
17, I'm sorry.
Last three being in 2018.
Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? No. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Gonna go to treasury warrants and invoices.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve payroll warrant number 75 in the amount of $34,560.91, and vendor warrant number 76 in the amount of $33,076.92 dated March 16, 2015.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're gonna go to fiscal year 2016 budget. And Mr. O'Brien, I'm actually gonna let you start, and then I'm gonna go to Finance Committee.
We recently submitted quite a lot of information about the activities of the emergency management team in Warren. And I think to put this in perspective, 3 or 4 years ago, or certainly 4 years ago, emergency management comprised of one person, and that was pretty much a part-time person due to personal commitments.
We are now 2 deputy managers, emergency managing directors, and 19 volunteers. And this is a greatly increased level of activity over a period of 3 years now. And we've been to you before about a meeting room which is needed. We've talked to you before about the construction or fitting out of the emergency response trailer. We're continuing to grow, and we're going to be here for a while. So we wanted at this stage, the budget has always been $3,000 per year, and that has not changed despite all the increased activity, and we've had some grants, but they have not changed either. But we have been awarded a couple of grants through MEMA and FEMA. So we're actually approaching the board, and I'm a little unsure as to the correct procedure here, but as we fall under the purview of the board, I understand. I'm not sure if we need to go further. Perhaps you could explain that to me. But we're approaching the board for an increase of $1,000 on that $3,000 per annum. 500 of which is for additional supplies. We have to provide our volunteers with health and safety equipment, cold weather equipment. We've only just been able to purchase 10 waterproof jackets, windproof jackets for when we do the night work in the winter. And the other amount, 500, is really for a stipend, sorry, for the 2 of us in lack of not having an emergency management director to take full responsibility of the team. We've been discussing the possibility of bringing somebody in full-time. I think the odds of doing that with a high salary will be far more difficult for the board to accept. So we are asking the board to consider this increase at this time, and would appreciate your advice on the procedure here from Terry.
Questions?
No question, I just wanted to.
Question?
I'd like to know the difference between the CERT team and the emergency management team.
CERT is really part of emergency management. It's a group community emergency response team who are all volunteers, and they operate under our direction, and we are also part of that CERT team. But together we are the emergency response team.
Emergency, we're more apt to deal with MEMA and FEMA directly. Deal with conference calls and stuff.
Yeah, the requirements of the state have greatly increased in communications, what they require in reporting.
Your CERT team assists in traffic, and for instance, when West Brookfield has their town hall or their town
On the common.
That I don't think would come under emergency management.
It's traffic control.
That's strictly the CERT part.
So that is on request of the emergency management director in West Brookfield. And everything we do has to be requested either by the fire chief or police chief in either town.
Let me ask this question. You have $3,000 in your budget now. You want to bring expenses to 35 and 500 for stipends. The money that's in that, that's only spent pertaining to things that happened in Warren and things that, and spent on expenses for people that are part of that from Warren? Explain that to me.
The team as it stands right now consists of about 18 members from Warren. But we have an obligation to support both towns. So our team does quite a lot of traffic control on behalf of the police chief in West Brookfield also. What we spend on equipment and supplies, because of that makeup, means it goes to Warren personnel. And there's one West Brookfield person also who needs safety equipment. So it's really a sort of joint effort between the two towns. The emergency management group, which has been established for quite some time. But we really do the brunt of the management of it.
And the stipend, would kind of explain how that came up for me, please?
Well, it's more apt because we spend hours and hours working, filling out grant applications, stuff like that, dealing with FEMA, conference calls. Every time these severe storms and stuff come, National Grid sending out conference calls, emails, we have to answer back to all these representatives.
Yeah, there's a greatly increased requirement of MEMA, especially to keep closer communication. And in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, it's been an extremely busy time keeping up with everything they need. We've also, just this winter during the storms, we've been asked to coordinate with other town departments, such as the highway department, to be the main communication point with MEMA for any requirements, and that includes all the costs for snow removal, etc. Tom has done all the hard work in crunching numbers, but this process has just been brought in by MEMA, so we have an additional responsibility there. And there may be a different department, it may be fire even. So one additional responsibility, which takes time.
That's the board's pleasure.
I think it's gonna have to be, we're gonna have to bring it up again and then bring it to finance, because it falls under us. We're gonna have to amend, if we're gonna consider it, we're gonna have to amend our budget and bring it back to finance.
I think there's one other problem. Anytime we put a new job that becomes paid in any way, shape, or form, the first time that we put that stipend on, it has to go in an article at town meeting. Then after that, it can be included part of a budget, but the article themselves, it would have to be an article.
So 500 could be could be amended in our budget, but the $500, $250 stipend would have to be put on an article.
That's correct. 1 second. Go ahead, Sue.
So if this is, CERT is part of West Brookfield, are you also approaching West Brookfield to share in the cost of your expenses? Since they're
We have,
benefiting?
yeah. As an example, you've probably all seen the emergency management trailer at the back. That was a joint effort between the two towns. So West Brookfield actually purchased the trailer, and Warren has done the fitting out. And we've, kept in close cooperation there, so the costs have been pretty much equal. And we have approached the police chief in West Brookfield about supporting us in some of these additional costs, and he has the same constraints and has not been able to do anything yet in that direction, but we do keep in communication quite frequently, so we can take up any opportunity we can.
I mean, they must have an emergency management other than the police chief, yes? No?
He is the only
He is the only one.
emergency management person, yeah.
Jerry?
I'd like to know about the term stipend. I was led to believe that in order to grant a stipend, there was a certain amount of certification that had to go along with that title. So we need to make sure the semantics are correct to go forward with this.
Yeah, and like I said, whatever that may be, it would have to go to town meeting for town meeting approval the first year, then it can be added to a line item budget.
Right.
That's how we've been doing it, but everybody had that approved first, and then we went to it. Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
we will discuss it.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry. I just had a quick question. The initial $3,000 that was in the budget, was that actually for, did that include stipends previously, or was that specifically for
Did not include
emergencies to
stipends.
purchase?
Stipends are entirely different, has to be voted on at town meeting, as I said.
Oh, okay, so the $3,000 was initially just for supplies in an emergency or
Yes.
whatever, okay.
That's correct.
Okay, and then the other question I had was, is it possible for a stipend to be paid for a volunteer for somebody who's not a town employee, or do they have to be a town employee to get a stipend?
If it's in my opinion,
Yeah,
if it were to be a stipend paid through the town of Warren, it would have to be paid to a resident of the town of Warren.
okay,
That's my opinion.
okay. All right, thank you.
We'll take the matter under advisement,
Thank you.
and we will get back to you.
Thank you very much. That's what we asked at this stage.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Barry, come on up front, and we're gonna give you a while. We haven't got a lot of time, but we'll give you some time to talk about budgets.
We only have a couple of issues, so we want to get clarification on these ideas.
Okay.
Ideas. The police budget. The chief came, reviewed his budget with us, but there were two items in there. Ken is not able to be here tonight because of a funeral, so I'm speaking on his
That's okay.
behalf. He had put a $40,000 expense in for a car into his expense account, which I extracted and put it on a separate line because I believe that should go to town floor, shouldn't it?
Here's the answer. Number one, take it out of the budget completely,
Okay.
and include it as if the chief wants to put it on as an article. Cars are put on as an article, not under expense budgets, not under omnibus budget, because it's not a continuous expense. And we discussed that, if you remember.
Yeah. The second question is, the chief would like to add a second sergeant. As he explained to us, there could be, his current sergeant may or may not retire. He doesn't know whether he will or not, but he wants to have a second sergeant in training. Our question was, if the officer is not trained to be a sergeant, why are we paying a stipend to that officer while he's in training? Shouldn't he complete the training before he's awarded the stipend and give the additional money?
Usually what happens is, well, let me go back. I don't think the board has a problem, and I'm not speaking for the board yet. I don't think the board has a problem with a sergeant, but I think that the only way the board would ever approve a sergeant would be within a certain time period when somebody's gonna retire. We're not gonna do it 3 years ahead of time or anything like that. It's going to be, we need a specific date. If a money was put in the budget for that, it would have to be with the approval of the Board of Selectmen and a date as to when that sergeant, for her sergeant, was gonna retire.
So should I extract it from the budget now?
Yes.
Oh, just wanted to make sure. Yes,
We need to make sure that whomever it is retiring. Once that notification's been put before
Right.
us, and we can plan it,
Yeah.
then we'll plan to replace. I'm not in favor of staffing anybody, like David said, 3 years in advance to train. I don't think that's warranted, and I don't wanna pay that. So the request is, in my opinion, no.
Okay. With regard to the rest of his budget, did you all three have a chance to review that budget from the police department?
no, we have a working session for the Board of Selectmen coming up.
On the 11th, we're gonna do a working
We're
session.
gonna do a working session to discuss everybody's budget. We haven't reviewed that, we have not seen that budget in its entirety. The board will be looking at all budgets that are at least semi under the control of the Board of Selectmen, and we will be giving you our recommendations then.
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair,
Go
just to
ahead.
give you a timeline, and I know a memo had gone out. April 2nd is the deadline for the article submission, Thursday. We are planning on possibly voting on the articles on the 7th at our scheduled meeting, and then we're planning the working meeting to go over the budgets on the 11th, which is a Saturday. That's tentatively what we're planning moving forward.
If the Finance Committee wants to come in on that Saturday, they're welcome to come in, but it's gonna be strictly a working session, because we're gonna try to get through all the budgets we can that day.
Well, hopefully, before you get to that, Lorena and I she will have gotten everything that we have recommended, so that you have something to work from. And that way, If there's any changes, additions, omissions, then we'll be on the same page at that point. So my expectation would be us as a board would join you for that meeting, but hopefully the work would have been done by the time that meeting happens.
That would be fine, but that's when we think we're gonna be doing it. And the meeting before that, we're gonna look at everybody that requests an article for the warrant
Right.
and decide if the board's going to agree to put them on or not.
Okay. We need some help. We have I don't know if you want to talk about this now or you want to come to the meeting. The assessors are gonna meet with us on Thursday. They have a couple of issues with regard to certification for the assistant assessor, as well as potentially an increase in her current salary. So I need to know if she in fact can collect that stipend, first of all. And her answer to me was she needs to be certified as an appraiser, but the work she's working on right now is towards the Assessors Association. There's a conflict with calling it a stipend if in fact you decide to award her for her education. She has done several years of education. She does have the paperwork for it. But it's again semantics, and we need to look at that to make sure that we're all on the same page about what we call it if in fact you're going to award her that.
We've looked into it a little bit already, we'll be looking into it again. We will happily meet with you, but I think it would have to be in the near future. Because I know we're looking into what other towns do, and we're looking into calling the state to find out what their recommendation would be.
Okay. I mean, I need a figure.
I understand.
I just need a figure. And I also need to know how to proceed when the board comes the assessors board comes before us about her actually getting a raise in the midst of us going through all of the step increases, how we're gonna handle that. So I need some direction on that.
Only raise that's possible at this point. The town bylaw allows us to move somebody up a step, but not the complete step. It only allows us to move it up within a certain parameter of the next step up. So the only way she could be given a raise, other than a raise she'd normally get, after 3 years, whatever it may be, would have the personnel board look at it and say that, yeah, we'll move that person up a step within that parameter. We can't go fully the next full step. We can go within 5 cents or something like that of the next step.
But
that's the only thing we can do.
But it's her board that needs to recommend that, right? It's not for us to just add it arbitrarily.
No.
I'm confused. She's already on the wage classification schedule. The assistant assessor is entitled to a step increase. So are you putting before us tonight that they're coming to ask for additional step increases specifically?
She may be.
Well, tell them to put it in writing.
They would have to put it in, have to take a vote of the Board of Assessors, put it in writing, and request it through the personnel board.
Is this in regards to the solar, additional funds
Yes.
for the solar also?
Yes.
I've researched that. I can answer that question for you right now. I've called 5 communities. Nobody pays additional money to their assessor's office for solar work. I called Diane Bishop, Regional Board of Assessors Planning Assessors Board, and spoke to her personally. She said nothing for solar, nothing for wind farm. The only time they've ever been compensated for extra work is if it's considered comp time and they put in extra hours during the day and her board decides to pay her additional time if she stayed later during the day or whatnot, but no additional funds. And keep in mind, that is this year or years past, and in those 20-year and 25-year agreements, the work is completed. There's no more work year 13, 14, 15 as she would have the first year.
Well,
So we have to look at this.
I really.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to pad a salary and then have somebody retire in 3 years just for a 3-year retirement, because then we're stuck with that salary and what we're paying for the next person coming in. I want to be fair when we look at this. And I'm personally not in favor of just bumping people up steps. just because they're, you know, I should get it. You know, you wanna put it in writing, come before us, that's fine, but there's been many layers to this whole request for increases. So,
Well,
I think there needs to be a lot of discussion regarding that office.
With regard to this particular office, I'm not telling them how to run their business. I'm trying to account for how they want to make these adjustments in their budget.
We understand, so.
So I need to have someone there, if that's how you all feel.
Yep.
Then I need somebody there to represent you so that when they present their budget, there's someone there to speak to those points.
This week, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, tomorrow night, we have Pathfinder and I have the senior center, and Thursday night, Mr. Lavash and myself are going to the open meeting presentation of where, so I couldn't, yes, I couldn't make this Thursday.
We'll see if we can come up with something in the future, but as of right now, the answer would be, the only person that can do, the only board that can do that is a personnel board. So they have to send a letter to the personnel board stating what they were requesting, and they would have to state why and justify it. And again, the only thing that can be done at this present time is to bump up somewhere within that next step.
And please keep in mind, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, we are working on the wage classification schedule as a whole for everyone, not just any one individual. With the minimum wage increase and where we're looking at moving in the next years to come, we're trying to put something before the town within the next year that justifies everybody moving up and staying within that minimum wage, you know, requirement, or not requirement, it's not a mandate on us, but we are following that. So we want to make sure that we're moving everybody up accordingly and getting ourselves into a new schedule. So we're looking at that as a whole for everyone.
So, and what we will say this, as we've discussed in the past, if we were to do what we're considering doing pertaining to get to the $10 an hour level net for next year, everybody gets a step anyways.
Right.
Because we eliminate, we take what's the minimum now and move it step one to where the minimum was and move everybody up one step.
Right.
So it will be theoretically possible for somebody to get 2 steps next year, because everybody's gonna get the 1, and then if they're within that 3-year time period, they get another step. So it would be very possible that somebody could do that. But if it goes through, in order to get to that $10 an hour level for everybody, everybody's gonna get a step. So have them write the letter to the personnel board. All right, anything else?
Those are the only 2 I have for tonight.
All right, yes,
Have you guys had any discussion about the school budget?
No.
no.
Okay.
You know what, I will have a discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
Here's the discussion. Discussion being that the school committee voted last night to request additional funding for next year. Last year, we gave them $225,000 above minimum. So they received additional $225,000 above minimum last year. They voted last night to request $823,000 this year above minimum.
That's just more, by the way.
That's just Warren's assessment, which I looked it up and I kind of did it very quickly, and it comes to, they're asking for 300 times more than that they had last year. The board stance is this, as we sent out, level funds, because that's what we told everybody else. Can they justify more? We're meeting with them on the 25th over in West Brookfield for the school committee, excuse me, and the Board of Selectmen and the finance committees, and we're going to see what West Brookfield says. Until then, it's going to be level fund.
Just one other question. Have you had any consideration about moving town meeting to June? Since now West Brookfield has formally done that?
We have no problem with our town meeting in May.
Correct.
And we're not gonna move it because West Brookfield moved theirs.
No,
I'm not being, I'm just saying.
I shouldn't have said it that way. It's not because they did, but it's because of numbers. I mean, we just got the governor's first round budget and it was not pretty. You know, we still gotta wait for the other budgets to come out. And it's just a numbers thing, and I mean, everything's a moving target until almost July.
I think that, my personal opinion, for the school committee to even request an $823 is about as ridiculous
I
and
agree.
selfish as they can get.
I agree with you.
In my opinion, and There's
that's
no
all.
way in hell.
And I wouldn't, so I just, I thought it was crazy.
Okay, I'm gonna go to other business, and we are talking about Kurt Mayland and net metering credits discussion.
Thank you, Mr.
How are you,
Chairman.
sir?
I'm fine, thank you. So as you know, I helped,
Do me one favor, introduce yourself first so everybody knows where you're
Sure.
from and so forth.
Kurt Mayland, I was the developer of the Spring Street and Ware Road solar sites that are under construction at the moment. They're since under the control of Altus Power, but I worked with them throughout the project process. And that's why I'm here tonight. We were in the process, you're familiar with net metering. We have, these are two community solar sites, meaning half the power from each site. We try to find one creditworthy off-taker, which is usually a municipality or a school district or someone like that that's not going anywhere. And then the other power we spread out among individual homeowners and businesses. The state encourages us to do that by giving us better renewable energy credit pricing. So right now we're looking for an off-taker, someone to purchase the net metering credits for approximately 500 kilowatts on one site and 500 kilowatts on the other. And when I had inquired if the town had any capacity for purchasing net metering credits, if you had already contracted with it, I was told no, and that maybe I should come speak with you. The basic idea is, do you want me to explain how it works? Have you had this sort of?
Oh, we went through this more than once.
Okay, so we would love to work with the town on selling you net metering credits. We think it would be great for obvious reasons. It keeps all the benefits local. The kids can go up and see the site and see where the power is coming from that are powering the local buildings in the water district. Now, we have a pretty firm policy. When I say we, I mean Altus. They've done agreements like this with Belchertown School District, the Hamden-Wilbraham School District, Berkshire Hills Regional School District. We've done a bunch of these, and we try to be fair with everybody. And what we do is we offer a 20% discount to the net metering credit. And I pulled up, Mr. Scanlon sent me some numbers of what you all use in your various departments, and I mean the numbers are fairly simple. If you look at today's value of a net metering credit, and if we were to supply you with roughly 90% of what you use, we try not to go the full 100% in case you develop some energy efficiency and you use less. Today's value on an annual basis would be roughly a $30,000 discount to your electric bill. If you know the mechanics, how it works, it's a paper transaction, you would do it.
Let me ask this question.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but let's say theoretically speaking, we spend 15 cents or 15 whatever per kilowatt. You're telling me if we were to spend that 15, you're going to give us a 20% discount. Is that what you're saying?
Works differently than that.
Then I'm just wondering, in pure figures,
Yep.
okay, if we're paying 15,
Yep.
what do we get it from you?
We don't sell you that type of power. What you'll see, you have all these bills in front of you, from the fire department down to the street light.
Yep.
We fill out a form with National Grid, and we allocate net metering credits according to how much each meter uses. And what each bill will see on it is a cash credit.
I understand that.
Yep, and that is based off of what we produce and a set rate that the state has for net metering credits, which is actually based on us. It has nothing to do with the rates you get. So we're gonna put a cash credit on each of those bills. And what we basically say is you essentially kick back 80% of that, keep 20% of that cash, and it reduces your bill by that amount.
20%.
20%. It's the 20% to the actual credit itself, which right now is valued at, for us, remember this is based on us, we're a small commercial user, so we get the G1 rate. Right now that's about 23 cents. It goes up, it goes down, like your bills do. So 20% off of 23 cents is almost 5 cents a kilowatt hour. So if we send you in total about 640,000 kilowatt hours of net metering credits, spread out among those bills, you multiply that by 5 cents, and you get close to a $30,000 savings. Now, if electricity goes up in price, our net metering credit goes up in value, and hence your discount also goes up. Because the biggest piece of how they value our net metering credit is that supply charge. That's the most expensive thing, and that's the one that goes up and down. It'll go down on April 30th, it'll go back up next winter. The nice thing about the system too is if you've already contracted with like a retail provider, like a Dominion or a Continental, one of those groups, that doesn't affect what we can offer you. It's simply, we're offering you basically a cash credit on your bill. So you can continue to take the cheaper supply from them and just make your bill a little cheaper, and we're gonna make everything on that bill, including that supply charge, go down by a certain amount. It's how it works. I don't know how it's been presented to you before, but that's how all net metering credit works in the state from these types of places. It's really simply a cash credit on your bill that we ask for some of it back, and you get to keep some of it, and that cash that you keep represents the discount.
Question, Ariel?
No, well, I know, we have the landfill project moving forward also, and we've been discussions, we've been discussing, I should say, with them regarding if we were gonna net meter with them, and we were potentially gonna bring something before the town. How soon, or when would you need a commitment from the town regarding this?
Well, we're under construction, which is unusual. A lot of people don't start construction until they've got their net metering credit off-takers figured out. So we're, the polite way to say it is we would prefer to keep it local, but it's a first come, first serve. I mean, if we could find some city in the same load zone in the northeast part of the state, and they were to come to us and say, we can sign next week, we're in that position where we don't have much of a choice.
Any question, Bob?
Yeah, the other two were offering us a flat rate versus the 20% that would vary. Do you offer that?
We don't at this point. We offer the 20% discount that it creates a bigger cash amount when electricity prices go higher, smaller when they go lower, but your bills also go lower. So it's a pretty consistent 20% discount over. And the reason they do this, and I respect it, is because the first town they did a deal with was East Longmeadow, and East Longmeadow was fast. They signed an agreement with them in about 2 weeks, and they said, listen, as long as you're giving everybody 20%, we're okay signing this deal with you fast. I mean, with the Belchertown, they talked, and they said, okay, 20% is good. So we try to be, for business purposes, we try to keep everything consistent at 20%, which in this market is fair, and if not at the higher end of discounts that people are offering. The nice thing is there's no risk. We're under construction. It's not like it's going to stop. This will get built. I don't know what the size of the landfill is, but one of the issues the state has right now is there's no more, for anything over a megawatt, there's no more net metering credits in the National Grid territory. They're all used up. And I don't think the legislature is bumping those up anytime soon. So I don't know if it's over a megawatt or not.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, so they're gonna have to go private, and those are getting used up pretty quickly too. So this is nice in the sense there's no risk, it's local, it's fully financed, it's under construction, they're already chopping rocks up, and we work with your as Lana knows, with your town attorneys a lot at Compliment. I've done probably 10 agreements like this with Compliment, so it could be a fairly seamless transaction and not a lot of billable hours.
I have one question.
Yes.
All that pounding I hear from my house every morning, is that you putting stanchions or something in?
That's them
making
crushing
small
rock.
rock into big rock. Or
Yeah,
big
taking the
into
big
small.
rock and crushing it. It'll be over soon. It's
Just wondering, and I ask that because my neighbors keep asking me, and I keep telling them, well, that's the racetrack. That's what they tell me. I said, no, it's not the
No,
racetrack.
they're pounding-
I know it's gotta be the solar farm.
Yeah, they're pounding the rock and taking the big rock. It's a rocky site, and they're taking the big rock and crushing it, and they're gonna reuse it for the gravel roads. But that's the big step. That's why we started in the wintertime. After that, it'll be quiet.
That's fine. What if we were to do this? Mr. Nardi, you seem to be the one that's been more into this than anybody else. I know you were into it when it started. What if I were to request that you compare the offers or possible offers we have and get back to the board with a recommendation as soon as possible?
Okay, I think I'll probably call Bill tomorrow
Okay.
and discuss with Bill, our planner, and go over this and discuss the landfill again with him, and then
Okay.
possibly have an answer by next week.
Well, I'm not asking for next week, but as soon as possible, and the board will make the final decision, but I know you've been involved in this from the start, so.
And Bill's got all my info, and I'm happy to help, even if, even if you weren't to pick this site for your credits, if you want, I can give you some of the red flags. If the biggest thing is risk,
Mhm.
A lot of people come and try to lock these agreements up with towns, and then they run around and try to find their investment money. Sometimes they run around and try to find a site. Here, it's all done.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of
We're
figuring it out.
gonna do it as quick as we can.
I appreciate it.
coming in.
Thank you very much.
When we compare prices, we've done with Brandon.
No, we're gonna look at everybody. We're looking at everybody.
We're not done.
Okay, so they're still in the picture.
Oh, yes. We took nobody out. We're gonna look at all three of them and see what the best deal we get. All right. Other business, I wanna go to you, sir. Anything?
Just to resort that we did have the architect construction. I don't know what to call it anymore, we got more time. The gentleman that we needed for the town hall, we had to get down with. We had him down there this afternoon. He took pictures, he's gonna put the piece together. Hopefully they'll be back within a week or two, we'll see what's going on.
Very good.
He said that we shouldn't need he said the door is a repair,
Mm-hmm.
so we shouldn't need that big building permit, so I'm gonna go down and talk to them tomorrow, and see if we can get the building permit to put the door in anyway.
Very good.
That's all.
Anything from you, sir?
Yep. Well, Mr. Chair, I'm gonna read a quick little section out of our personnel bylaw. In section 5, under compensation plan, letter F, it shall be the responsibility of each board or department head to conduct an annual review of the employee's job performance prior to December 1st. It will be mandatory that said review be discussed with the employee, and acknowledgement of this discussion will be made on the review form used by each department head. And the reason why I'm reading that is because I've discussed this in the department head meeting about having evaluations. I would like this board to consider setting the example and evaluating our administrative assistant and our secretary in our office. I've presented 2 evaluation forms, there's 2 pages. What I propose is that maybe the 3 of us take 2 copies and write up an evaluation and then get together and collaborate on it and come up with a collaboration on what we think we should do, and then 1 board member sit with each of our employees and administer the review, so that the employee has a review with one of us. One for their file, and then 1 for the employee.
Any problem with that?
No.
So I have copies here, which I can make available to the board.
I don't have a problem with it either.
Lorena. So what I'd like to do is give you each 2 copies, to do 1 for our secretary and our assistant.
Wait a minute. Don't confuse
I'll
me.
give you 3, I'm sorry. Just 2. 2 for you, 2 for me, I'll give a copy to Lorena for the record. So if we could possibly look at this, take some clerical responsibilities and things, and put something together, and then we can collaborate, and one of us, and I will volunteer my time to sit down with each of them if that's the board's pleasure, or chooses to have me do that, and I will do the evaluation after we have them in place, and hopefully we can lead by example for the rest of the boards and departments to do some evaluations, and see where we stand, and sit down with your employees.
Very good. Anything else?
We announced the informationals, we announced the articles, I think that's about it, I think we got everything.
Very good. Yes.
The minutes from,
There were none this evening, they'll be here.
We'll have them next week.
Yes.
and the minutes that you approved last week, I didn't see them on the website.
I will check, I will check tomorrow, I'm not sure.
It was requested, we put.
We'll make sure they get on. All right, if there's nothing else to come before the board, our next meeting date is March 24th at 7 p.m. here. In the meantime, the board will be going to a couple meetings. We have one on tomorrow at Pathfinder for their budget, and we have some scheduled for the first week of April, as we talked about tonight. So it would be March 24th at 7 p.m. here. And if there's nothing else to come before the board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We also, just a reminder, have a meeting Thursday for the open meeting laws over where.
Okay.
6:30, 8:30, I believe, right?
Excuse me?
I think it's 6:30 to 8:30 and where? Thursday. Just the time. Yeah. No, you said the date. But yes, open meeting law meeting is where? 6:30 to 8:30. I think myself, Mr. Lavash, and Becky are gonna attend that meeting, so, it's open to the public.
Where is that?
Yeah.
Well, it's in where, but I mean, what?
Ware High School, correct?
Where high school, okay, thank you.
Did you have to register for it?
Yes.
Oh, you do, okay.
Attorney General.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
I thought that too.